Dictators are not God. They are like you, they are like me, they can fail. Turkey is the origin of Europe. You cannot make a dividing line between the two.
Mr. Levy, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. I'd like to, if you don't mind, to lighten up the mood, start with our brief quiz.
I like quiz.
What is your favorite place to write?
Anywhere. The place where I am, when I need to write, I write.
You don't have like, you can write in a war zone that you always
I can write in a cafe, I can write in the sun. I even can write when I am swimming. I write in my head.
That's great to know. What is your favorite book of all time?
I have no favorite book. It depends on what I'm writing at this moment. My readings are so much depending on what I am actually writing. Depends.
What have you read very recently? What are you reading right now?
What I reread recently is Don Quixote of Cervantes. I reread it very, very recently. I reread also very recently The Seven Pillars of the Wisdom of Lawrence of Arabia.
That's interesting because they did compare you to Lawrence of Arabia, didn't they?
They did, but Lawrence, the real one, is so great, so impressive. He shies me so much that really? I would certainly not compare myself to him. Huge writer, huge morality, and huge adventurer.
What is your favorite Parisian cafe?
It is dead. It was Café de Twickenham.
Where was it?
It's closed, having been replaced by a fashion shop, which is one of the current disasters in Paris. After that, there is Café de Flore.
Not Les Deux Magots.
Next door. You have two faiths in Paris, two religions. You have those who believe in Deux Magots and those who believe in Flore. It's like those who believe in Beatles and those who believe in Rolling Stones. I believe in Flore.
Okay. So what do you eat when you go there?
Always the same. I always eat the same, which is a salad, an omelette, and a great, good pastry.
What is your favorite painting?
Impossible to tell you what is my favorite painting. There is one painting which is very familiar to Turkey because it was ordered by a great Turk, which is the Origine du Monde, ordered by a bey, as you know. Very, very beautiful painting of a nude lady, and you can see the origin of the world, which is the holy place of the body of a woman, l'origine du monde. This is a great painting, but there are so much which I like.
Weren't you afraid of paintings?
I said that one time, yes, one time. I said that people generally think that they are looking at painting. I think that painters are looking at us. They are watching us. And we can be devoured, we can be burnt by the paintings. To be honest, I admire people who have a huge masterpiece in front of their bed, looking at them, a Rembrandt, whatever, looking at them night and day, and especially night. I think that this can be to be watched by beauty at length for so much time, constantly, 24/24, I think that it is at the same time great, but you can be overwhelmed by this greatness and you can be bored. That's why I don't collect.
If there is a debate competition and against you there is Socrates and Demosthenes. Who would you like as your teammate?
In order to oppose Socrates and Demosthenes allied.
Yes.
You mean?
Yes.
Socrates and Demosthenes are together against me.
Against you and a teammate that you will choose.
I would probably choose Cicero.
Why?
Cicero. Because he would, he's a real thinker, he's a real writer, but he pleads as nobody. He would plead for me, and he would plead my own arguments. And if I have Demosthenes and Socrates at the same time, which is the greatest philosopher, Socrates, and the greatest pleader, Demosthenes, I need Cicero. I would certainly recruit and enlist Cicero.
What is the most romantic thing you have done in your life?
1 or 2 love letters I sent in my life.
So, if you had the chance to have dinner with one of these people, this is not that romantic, but one is your political idol, old political idol, Mao Zedong, and the other one is one of your favorite designers, Christian Dior. Which one would you like to have dinner with?
Mao Zedong for sure. I have so many questions to ask him.
What would be the first question?
Why did he launch really a cultural revolution? How did he accept his own wife to be cursed as she was? These are the first questions I would ask him.
Istanbul or Paris? That's a trick question.
To live?
Only for a year.
For a year I would live in Istanbul.
Why?
Because I never did, because I love Istanbul, because I love the people of Istanbul, because it's it's one of the hearts and centers of the world history and civilization, and that I never had the opportunity to spend 1 year. Seriously, if I had the opportunity of spending 1 year in this serious opportunity, not just to idle but to do something, I would really consider it.
So at one point you had a $5.8 million price on your head. Do you think that was a fair number? What did that make you think?
I did not understand the 0.8. The figure was so odd. This was my real question. Why 5.8? Honestly.
That's where you got stuck as a philosopher, the 0.8?
I was frightened by that, yes.
That's amazing.
When I read that and when I was informed of that, I said, why 0.8?
So your last book is called Virus in the Age of Madness, but I noticed that the original title in French is called Ce virus qui nous rend fou, which is more like this virus that is driving us mad. Do you think we became mad?
The virus tends to make us mad, and mad meaning forgetting our core values and focusing so much on health, which is right to focus on health, of course. But when you focus too much on health, you forget the rest, which is at least as important. Values, freedom, taste of the others, pleasure to caress those whom you love, to get connected with your friends, to vote, really, to go to polls, and so on. These are also great habits and great pleasures.
Do you think it was a bit exaggerated? Do you think that we did, the lockdown was a bit too much, or did we have to be a bit more relaxed about the whole thing?
Yes, I think it was exaggerated, yes, because if a new pandemic arrives, we will know now, we will learn, and we will have to be more balanced between the requirements of the health and the requirements of the freedoms, of the human rights.
Are you a little upset about how humanity handled the pandemic?
Humanity will handle the pandemic for sure. We are handling it, and we are handling it for one reason, by the way, which is that for the first time in history, we discovered a vaccine in such a record time, in 1 year. When the pandemic started, we were told, and it was right, that we would need 5, 7, 10 years because of pressure, because of brotherhood between scientists, because of cooperation, because also of globalization. This is one of the bright sides of globalization. It took 1 year only to find at least 3 good vaccines. So for this reason, I'm optimistic. We are prevailing. We are prevailing more than our ancestors with all the pandemics.
Did you learn, as a philosopher, something new about human nature throughout this process?
Yes, the easiness to have people obeying, the easiness with which people accept, like sheep in a herd, it's rather easy.
So you're saying that in this example, maybe people got scared and they had to obey certain rules for an understandable reason, but eventually this reflex that you observed could result in the facilitation of more totalitarian steps.
We accepted nearly everything. We accepted cameras filming us in the shops in order to check that we were well equipped with the right mask. We accepted in Europe to have the borders closed. We accepted to forget absolutely and to get rid in our imagination and in our thoughts, poorest among the poor, the more afflicted among the afflicted. We accepted that it was no longer our concern. We accepted all of that so easily, without discussion. In France, for example, we lived for nearly 1 year, a month, in a quasi-non-democratic state. Parliament did not gather, high courts were suspended, regular justice was no longer functioning. A so-called scientific committee was, at the beginning at least, taking some of the decision, and nobody cared. Nobody protested. Nobody discussed.
You even warned at one point about totalitarian dictatorship of the doctors. Could you explain that, what you meant by that?
Democracy means that we have to listen to the experts. But when the experts have spoken, we, the people, have to deliberate. And they, the elected ministers, president, and so on, whom we chose, have to decide. The experts don't decide. There is a tradition, which is the Saint-Simonian tradition in France, which is the dictatorship of experts. It sounds, on the paper, common sense. The experts, they know, okay, they know, but they know in their field. They know in their precise field of expertise, but not beyond. Not beyond. The common good is a mix between a lot of requirements. I revere science. I revere medicine. But I revere also those who think a lot about the relationship between the children and the professors. I think that we would have had to listen to psychologists telling us what happens in the brain of a newborn who does not see a face for 1 year. If you want to go through expertise, you have to go through a lot of expertise and to crisscross them, not only one. So I said in my book, yes, I expressed my fear of this one-sided expertise, which we started to revere as a sort of law of God. Doctors are not God. They are like you. They are like me. They can fail. They are not sure. They are advancing in fog and smoke and uncertainty. Them too. It is their greatness. And we did not take that into consideration.
Do you think we lost a few things throughout the process? Like, do you do handshakes?
I like handshakes. Handshake is a gesture of peace, is a gesture of brotherhood, and is a gesture of equality. Handshake started in the Western civilization, at least, when people stopped to bow down in front of each other, one doing like that and the other looking him from above. Handshake means equality. There is no lord and slave. There is equal women and men. This is a handshake. So I would be really sorry if handshake had to disappear or to become more scarce in societies obsessed by the possibility of viruses, because this virus is terrible. It kills so many, but there will be others. It's not finished. There will be other viruses. Shall we definitely and forever stop to handshake? Shall we forever mask our face? Shall we forever forget all the expressiveness and the eloquence of a mouth, of a face? It will be difficult. Shall we forever speak through Zoom? Hope not.
Especially for a French person and a Turkish person like me, this is really, really hard, because this is how we live our lives.
For everyone. For everyone, even for a European of the North, humanity is a species who like to shake hands, to embrace, to look at each other. This is what makes human relationship rich and beautiful. So it's okay to suspend that for a while, but it would not be okay at all for me if this while became an always, or if this while became an habit, and if we arrive to say, at the end of the day, do we need to shake hands? Is it not as easy to speak as we are speaking today? When we arrive to that, it will be very dramatic.
You didn't completely stop what you're doing, though. You went to Lesbos in June, to Greece. You've been to Kabul in September 2020. You continue to be active politically in those areas throughout this process. And you come from a privileged family in France. You went to good schools, good education, and led quite a comfortable life. What was the urge that is sending you to all these dangerous hotspots of the world? Like, you go to Afghanistan, you go to Darfur, Syria, Bosnia. Why do you do this?
Because I think I have to. I have to. Duty, moral consciousness, intimate voice telling me that when something like the bombing on the civilians of Sarajevo happen, when Europe is so deeply indifferent, and when I have the feeling that I might have some tools in my hands helping to break this indifference, I have to use the tools. It's as simple as that. It's a reflex.
Do you think that it's true, is it true that you have single-handedly somehow ignited the military operation against Gaddafi in Libya?
No, 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 no. What is true is that I alerted, I informed my president, Nicolas Sarkozy, then the American State Secretary Hillary Clinton, by bringing to them some witnesses of the bloodbath which was preparing and already happening in Libya. This is what I did. I brought to Mrs. Clinton a man, Mahmoud Jibril. I brought to President Sarkozy 3 other men, Ali Zaidan, same Mahmoud Jibril, and my role consisted in helping those Libyans to speak to Clinton and to Sarkozy. My role consisted in convincing Sarkozy and Clinton to take time, to listen, to make their own faith and their own conviction. This is what I did.
I think there is an emotional moment that you had with President Sarkozy. What did you tell him about the situation in Libya at the time?
I told him that that it was unbearable to watch without reacting what was happening on the road from Tripoli to Benghazi. I just told him it was unbearable, and that it was unbearable for France to be associated with that, to have any sort of complicity with that. This is what I told him. France is France. It's a great country. It's one of the fatherlands of enlightenment, rule of law, fight against dictatorship. We cannot be partner. France cannot be partner with a butcher, with a dictator, which was Muhammad Gaddafi.
It's interesting that in the past too, you had close relationships with Jacques Chirac. I think you were his envoy to Afghanistan. You knew Giscard d'Estaing, François Mitterrand, Sarkozy, François Hollande. You are a philosopher, and you were unusually close to power for decades. What is your relationship with these people? Are you their friend?
No. No, no, I'm not their friends. I'm just a writer, a philosopher. It happened that apparently, in the cases which you mentioned, they did trust me, listen to me, and I'm happy for that. I think I never asked to any one of them something for me. I think so.
You did ask one time, though, didn't you, when you were about to get married in Saint-Paul-de-Vence, and you were stuck in Sarajevo? Could you tell us that story? This is the
only time. But I did not even ask. I called François Mitterrand. I told him I get married tomorrow. I'm stuck since 10 days. Do you see any way for me not to deceive my bride? And François Mitterrand did not reply anything. He told me, I don't think there is a solution, but who knows? And he hung up. And a few hours after, it is true that the Aryan bridge, the air bridge between Sarajevo and Europe was reopened for one day. I don't know if there is a cause to consequence effect, but you are well informed. This has happened. I never knew. I cannot imagine that François Mitterrand reopened the bridge for me. But finger of God.
Did the wedding go well?
I arrived at the last minute, and the wedding was great. And I'm so happy 28 years after, that it happened. I'm still married with the same lady, Ariel Dombal, and so happy of that.
Congratulations. Please give her our regards from Istanbul. Is this a French thing? You know, like even when Charles de Gaulle had a problem with Jean-Paul Sartre, and at one point he said, Sartre is France. Is this a relationship that is a bit typical to France for the political leaders to have such close relationship with people who think?
Probably, yes. There is an old relationship in France, yes. This is one of the good things in France, between the sword and the pen. There is a relationship. So many writers in the past dreamt to be men of action. Chateaubriand, Victor Hugo, André Malraux, so many. And so many statesmen dreamt, had the regret, had the nostalgia of not having been men of pen, writing. So there is a sort of continuous, in this country, in France, exchange between the two fields, yeah. And probably sort of strange and rather unique relationship between the two, statesmen and writers. So many presidents in France wrote books, felt that writing a book was not the worst thing they did, gave a lot of importance to it. This is France, yes, for course, for sure. Doctors are not God. They are like you, they are like me, they can fail. Turkey is the origin of Europe. You cannot make a dividing line between the
two. You also have good relations with some politicians that you criticize. Like you met Viktor Orban recently, who is one of the leading figures of populism in Europe. You met him in Budapest for an interview. Do you think that this new wave of populism succeeded, or is it succeeding in destroying democracy?
I have no good relationship with him. I had with another Orban, an Orban who is dead now, the Orban of 1989. Yeah, not today. The Orban who censors the free press, who censors the free judges, who prevents demonstrations. And this Orban, I despise him, and I have no indulgence for him of any sort. Does he prevail to strangle democracy in his country? In part, but in part only because the spirit of democracy, when you deal with a great people, with a great tradition, with a great culture, you cannot strangle it completely. You know, Hungary is not Liechtenstein, is a great country with huge writers, with huge painters, with a huge tradition and love for freedom. And this is stronger than any Orban.
In your book, The Empire and the Five Kings, you say that America, which is the empire in the context of that book, is losing its traditional role, and 5 new kings, new candidates for being empires, are threatening Western civilization. Russia, China, Iran, Sunni radical Islamism, and Turkey. Do you really think that we are a threat to Western civilization?
I don't say Western civilization, I say democracy.
You published a manifesto called Fight for Europe, and writers like Milan Kundera, Salman Rushdie, also a Turkish writer, Orhan Pamuk, were co-signers. In your concept of Europe, What is Turkey's position?
Turkey is the origin of Europe. Europe is the name of a little princess, according to the Greek mythology, who arrived on the shore of Europe, starting from the city of Tyre. Europe is not European. Europe is the name of a creature who travels from your shores to the shores of what is called today the European territory. So you cannot make a dividing line between the two. You cannot say that in the midst of Aegean Sea or even of the Bosphorus, those in Turkey who believe in human rights, who believe in a strict equality between women and men, who recognize the dark side of their collective history, those Turks are more Europeans than Viktor Orban, who turns his back to all European values. Europe is a territory, of course, but it is also a spirit. It is also a body of values. And I know so many Turks that are much more European, than, even if we don't speak Orban, much more European than Le Pen in France. We have a non-European in Europe, Mrs. Le Pen. She is at the best extreme right, at the worst a fascist. She is not a European. She has nothing to do with the inheritage of the little princess Europe.
But that's not a very high scale to compare, though, is it? Because in my opinion, I think there's a huge mass of population, not only in Istanbul, but in many cities of Turkey, that you could put anywhere, not only in France, but in Scandinavia, and I think they would put some demographic like dynamism and open-mindedness into these countries. Somehow we in here feel that our friends in Europe might be a bit neglecting the dynamism and the open-mindedness and the brightness of this young population in Turkey.
You are right, but I'm not among them. I'm not among them. That's why I'm so happy to speak with you. That's why I accepted, in spite of the huge work in which I'm involved now, to take this time to address to those not only open-minded, but Democrats, lovers of secularisms, lovers of feminism, who are so numerous in Istanbul and in Ankara and in Van and everywhere in Turkey.
You just shot a documentary about the Peshmerga, and recently you've been really interested in the Kurdish role in this region. What drives your interest to this subject?
The fact that the Kurds are, as you were, you, the Turks, at the time of Atatürk, they are proud of their tradition and of their Muslim tradition, but they consider it as a matter of internal life, as a matter of intimate faith. They don't want to impose it to the rest of the world. They don't want to enslave their wives, their sisters, and their daughters. They are open to other faiths and religions. They protect the Christians. They protect the few remaining Jews where there are. So this conception of Islam, this matching between Islam and secular and enlightened values, how can I say? When I meet that, I'm overwhelmed by gratitude and joy and will to support.
One other people I think that shouldn't be neglected about that is that it's the Palestinians. You know, maybe now it's not like before, but Palestinians are also a people with very similar secular, deeply rooted secular tradition. What do you think about the Palestinians' situation today?
The Palestinians are a great people, embracing a lot of them, a majority of them, these values of which we are talking, and they are taken into hostage, they are hijacked, they are living under the boot of some unresponsible, cynical leaders, sometimes neo-fascists like the Hamas, obeying to interests that are not theirs, I mean, that are not the interests of the people themselves, and so on. And it is such a pity to see the Palestinian people under the influence, under the spell, under the curse of this hopeless leadership. Hamas and sometimes the PLO, and still sometimes the PLO.
But Mr. Levy, like last year, me and my wife, we were in Jerusalem, and one of my best friends from college is Palestinian, who lives in Ramallah in the West Bank. And I gave him a call, and it was difficult, but he arranged us, he sent us a car to Jerusalem, so we were supposed to go through one of the checkpoints near Jerusalem and drive into Ramallah. It's usually maybe like a half an hour drive or so. So I took my wife, who is American, by the way, and she was a bit, stressed. I'm like, don't worry, it'll be fine. We'll just go there. After waiting at that checkpoint for about 3 hours, we had to make a U-turn without even being able to get through Ramallah. Like, we did make it through the checkpoint, but we couldn't go back. And the sight that I saw there, me as a journalist, I've seen it before many times, but for my wife especially, it was a traumatizing experience. These people live like in an open-air prison. They're being monitored constantly, economically, politically. They are not in a good state. So how can we expect them to build like a healthily functioning political system or a democracy?
That's why I am in favor of the peace between the two, between Israel and Palestine. And that's why I'm pleading for that since so long, since the beginning of my life, of course. I want peace. I want to stop these blockade, miradors, U-turns, making hours to make the... Of course, yeah, you're right. Peace.
So now I'd like to talk about this very burning issue of our time, the women's issue. So I would like to... there was lots of speculation about your support of director Roman Polanski and the former IMF chief Dominic Strauss-Kahn, Mr. Kahn, who went to trial for assaulting a hotel maid in New York City, and Mr. Polanski, who was found guilty of raping a 13-year-old girl. Why did you defend these people?
I defended justice in the two cases. In the case of Polanski, I just reminded that Polanski went in jail, that he paid for his crime, and he paid a lot at this time in the 60s. I just reminded that, and that when a man has committed a crime and paid the debt to the society, it's a law. The price is paid. This was for him. About Strauss-Kahn, I said that he deserved, and that the lady deserved, both of them, a fair trial, a real trial, which, alas, by the way, did not happen, because the lady decided to withdraw her complaint against some money, which is her right, but the trial did not take place. I just said that. I want a fair trial for him, and not a class justice reversed. I mean by that, the more you are famous, the more you attract the focus of the world, the new panopticon of the social networks, the more you are suspect and guilty. Which was what happened with Strauss-Kahn, the way in which he was treated with his perp walk, the way in which the whole world entered in his intimacy and in the intimacy of Madame Diallo was just not fair.
Do you think that this is a case that happens when the man is extremely famous? Because these are men of power and high positions. So it's interesting to think that they could be in a disadvantageous state. Is this something that happens when they're extremely mediatic or sensational figures?
There is a temptation to that, yes. And we, you, the journalists, those who are on social networks have to be aware of that and to resist this tendency. Yeah. I am for justice. I am for, I think that sexual harassment is a crime. Rape is a huge crime, which requires a high punishment. No, evidently, no doubt about that. But the rule of law has to apply to these crimes too, as to the others.
I was just watching this documentary, this long interview with Fran Lebowitz on Netflix. She did this interview with Martin Scorsese. And there she says, there was such a systemic injustice between man and woman throughout history that at this point, you have to believe what the woman says, categorically. What do you think about that?
I'm not sure she's right. I'm not sure she's right. No, the systemic injustice does not mean that we have to systematically believe the word of anyone. No, no, no. The principle of justice is that you have to hear the voice of the one who accuses. You have to hear the voice of the one who defends himself. You have to hear the voice of lawyers of the two sides. You have to listen to nuance, to all the... You have to have a very clear and acute ear in front of a question of injustice. No, you cannot say, I listen to the voice of so or so blindly and in a deaf way to the rest. No, no. Justice means to hear the whole story and to make a real balance and to have a real wisdom. This is justice. If not, it's punishment, it's revenge, it's lynch, it's another story, which I don't like.
How do you view the general picture of the Me Too movement? Do you think what is going on today is a women's revolution?
Yeah. Yeah. It's at least the second step of the feminist revolution. When I was a young publisher, the first book I ever published as a publisher was the book of a great French lady called Gisèle Halimi. Gisèle Halimi, she wrote a book called La cause des femmes, the cause of the women. I was the publisher of that. It was in 1972 or 3, maybe 73, La cause des femmes. I published in my publishing line this book, and it is one of the prides of my life that my first job as a publisher was to publish La cause des femmes. What happens today for me is step 2, stage 2 of this revolution. So that's great. I'm happy of it. This being said, I know that today, like yesterday, any revolution, and on any ground, you can have some, a revolution can be frozen, a revolution can be hijacked, a revolution can be taken into a stage by a few, and you have to do all that you can to resist that when you are a woman and when you are a man also, because such an important revolution as feminism concerns everyone, not only women. Concerns, and I am against this new tendency who says that the question of the disabled is only the affair of the disabled, that the affair of the Jews, the question of the Jews is only the matter of the Jews. I'm against that. I am a universalist. I believe in mankind. I believe in one and single mankind. I believe in brotherhood.
Maybe now we would have to say sisterhood.
Yeah, we can say sisterhood, yeah, okay. Brotherhood and sisterhood.
So you are such a big celebrity at the same time. They call you a rockstar philosopher. And does this fame hinder you, or does it help you with your mission as an intellectual?
It helps. It helps. Sometimes it is a handicap, of course, but on the whole, I'm not going to hide myself behind my finger. It helps. It helps to have access to suffering people. It helps to go to President Chirac, or to go to President Mitterrand, or to go to President Macron to give the warning and the alert. It helps, of course. And I use that as much as I can without any reservation, without any hesitation.
The flip side of the coin is that you also receive a lot of criticism. You know, like there are also some haters. And do you think that people might be a bit jealous of you, the way you live? You also have a glamorous life. You spend your holidays in Hotel Eden Rock in south of France. You have a palace in Marrakesh. Do you think people are a bit jealous because it's an atypical profile for a philosopher?
I don't know, honestly. This is their problem, not mine. Seriously. It is their problem. They have to wonder. It's a question for them. I hope they ask themselves the question. For me, it's not a point.
But do you get bothered by criticism?
No.
You don't care?
No. Of course I care. When I'm criticized by somebody I love, somebody I respect, somebody I admire, it happens, then I'm sad. But when I am criticized by the mob of the internet, it's okay. It's okay. When I was criticized by once a few years ago by your president, by Erdogan, it was funny. To be honest, it made me laugh. It made me laugh. It was fun.
This is the final question. What advice do you have, especially for young people, and for young people maybe in Turkey, let's say, since we had a little chat about Turkey today, to face this uncertain time in a better way? Can you recommend a book, a film, a music, or a life advice?
I recommend books, films, musics. This is what I would recommend them. Life is a big part of life is embedded there, and not only in the unsocial networks. This is what I recommend to my grandchildren, and this is what I would recommend to those of the Istanbul yacht who have the age of my grandchildren, or my children maybe.
Mr. Levy, it was a great pleasure to have you. We're expecting you in Istanbul for a whole year.
Yeah, let's make a plan.
Okay.
Good luck to the Istanbul yacht people. Good luck.